Hi, everyone, and welcome to Learnosity's series of on-demand webinars. Thank you for joining us for our second long-term support webinar of 2026. For any viewers unfamiliar with our long-term support releases, they're strong, complete, and stable versions of our APIs. 3 times a year, we release these production-ready versions of our APIs, which are then supported for 2 years. My name is Audrey Young, and I'm a Learnosity product manager based in California. Later in the webinar, I'll also be joined by Kate Hake, our VP of Product for AI. AI has changed user expectations, and the market is more competitive than ever. As the leader in AI for assessment, Learnosity enables you to rapidly evolve your business and outpace the competition. We help you ship faster, without ever sacrificing quality or control. Because we invest heavily in R&D and operate on a continuous improvement loop, you get these advances automatically. Today, we're showcasing the latest innovations from our team of developers and AI specialists. Let's walk through what's new from our release on the 10th of June. In AI, we'll cover how Author Aide and Feedback Aide team up to generate items with built-in rubrics, and how to spot gaps in standards alignment at a glance. In analytics, we've got clear score reports for every learner and pagination support for the response analysis report. In assessment, we'll talk about smoother grade passback with LTI 1.3, and how to capture every try-again score. In authoring, we'll cover how to move content across platforms more easily. In accessibility, we've got keyboard support for text highlights, and we're reducing timer pressure to improve focus. And in STEM, we'll explore more flexible multiplication scoring in equivaliteral. Let's start with AI. Author Aide now generates essay with rich text questions with matching Feedback Aide short response rubrics. That means authors can cut item creation time while ensuring each item includes consistent, ready-to-use scoring guidance. Let's take a look at a demo. We've expanded Author Aide to now generate an essay with rich text question type along with a corresponding Feedback Aide short response style rubric. So let's take a look. Clicking into our new question type, we see here we can start to specify how many items we want to generate, so we can generate a single generation or even bulk as well. So for this example, we'll generate 1 question. And then we'll paste in our source material or a specific topic that we have in mind. So I have my source material for the water cycle. I filled out the information on the item itself. And down here, we'll see a new section on how we should set the rubric up. So we can select what type of Feedback Aide short response style rubric that we want, either general, categorize, key points, or X from Y. So for this example, let's select key points. And now we can further specify how many key points we want. So let's say maybe 3, as well as the point value per key point as well. Let's say 2. And then we can also specify any additional grading guidance for Feedback Aide to take into consideration as well. With all that information filled out, we can simply click Generate to generate our item. And so it's not only generating the question, right? It's also generating the rubric at the same time, right within the same workflow. So by the time that your item is created, it's already wired up with the scoring guidance Feedback Aide needs to evaluate the responses. So see here, Score with Feedback Aide is already enabled. And we can also edit the key points rubric as well. So clicking into it, we can see we have those 3 different key points. Each one is worth 2 points, and we can review and edit as needed. And so the result is that every Feedback Aide short response style rubric, along with their essay with rich text question type that comes out of Author Aide, is already complete, right? Question and rubric together. It's consistent, it's ready to be handed off. There's really no extra steps and no gaps in the scoring setup. Everything is within this one workflow.
Now we'll talk about a new Aide and Health Check report that shows exactly how your item collection maps to standards frameworks. This gives you instant visibility into gaps in alignment across your entire item bank. Let's take a look. Here we are reviewing a collection in Aide and Health Check, where we've already imported 46 items from our item bank and ran a few jobs. Aide and Health Check has ensured that all of our images have alt text, and we've also ran a correct answer validation job to make sure that all of the correct answers are in fact accurate. Now we'll take a look at the new job around Standards Coverage Report. So I'll select this from the job type and I will pick the jurisdiction. In this case, I'll look at Common Core State Standards, the subject, which was mathematics, and a grade level that these items were intended for. Now, when I run the job, Aide and Health Check is going to analyze each of those items in my collection and determine which standard they align with. And I'm going to be presented with a report. So now we review this report. At a top level, we get a breakdown to understand which of these key areas I have coverage of. So I can see that of these items, the majority actually relate to expressions and equations, and I have less items on functions, the number systems, geometry, and statistics and probability. So that's helpful information if I want this module to maybe be equal across each of these key areas, or maybe this makes sense depending on my goals. I can then dig into individual areas. Perhaps I look at functions. I can see there's 8 items that align with functions, but the majority are actually looking at standard code FB4. So more of these questions are around using functions to model relationships. If I'm happy and I've done view these report, I can always download it. That's going to give me information around each individual item and which one it aligned to. I can mark this completed and I can move on with more tasks. Now back over to Audrey.
Thanks, Kate. Now let's move on to analytics. Authors can now group items into meaningful categories during activity authoring. Learners then get a report that shows how they performed across each group, turning session scores into targeted, actionable feedback. Let's take a look at a demo. So let's take a look at our scoring groups report. So first off, in our activity authoring UI, we need to make sure that our reporting tab is enabled through the Author API configuration. And once that's in place, we can click in and see that we can now create scoring groups for the activity. And so from here, if I want to create my first scoring group, I simply click the button. And let's say for this math assessment, I want to create a scoring group of linear equations. So I could simply type in my title, and now I can start to add the items. And I can either add them based off tags or by items. And so for tags, you'd simply type in the tag that you'd want to search for, and you can add it in here if the activity has those items available. Now, if I wanted to add it by items, I could simply click into Find Items and start to add the activities in this aspect. Add the 3 items, go back. We can now see here that this scoring group is populated with the questions that have linear equations. I can also set a benchmark score for this individual scoring group. So let's set this to 50, or I could set one for the overall activity as well. So those are both optional depending on how you want to structure your scoring groups. If I want to create additional scoring groups, I simply select the button again, go to the new scoring group, name it to potentially, let's say, geometry, and start to add my items again. One thing worth calling out, though, is that scoring groups are independent of each other. So the same item can belong to more than one group. And that gives you a lot of flexibility in how you slice and report on performance without having to duplicate anything. And once learners complete the activity, that grouping data feeds directly into the scoring group reportlet, giving learners and educators a clear breakdown of how they performed in each category, turning an overall session score into something much more targeted and actionable. Response Analysis Report now supports pagination. This makes larger reports easier to navigate and interpret, giving educators and administrators a smoother reporting experience as their user base grows. Next up, assessment. Assessment results now flow securely into your LMS via LTI 1.3 grade passback, seamlessly feeding gradebooks, dashboards, and reporting tools with the data that drives smarter decisions downstream. Every try again attempt score is now stored and exposed. You get the flexibility to apply your own custom scoring rules and build assessment workflows that work better for your learners. Next up in authoring, a new QTI conversion library enables bidirectional conversion between Learnosity JSON and QTI 2.1 and 2.2. This makes it easier to move content across platforms and integrate with Learnosity. Let's see what's new in accessibility. Learners can now create and remove text highlights using only their keyboard, making the annotation experience more operable and flexible for users across all input preferences and accessibility needs. Learners can now hide the assessment timer to stay focused and reduce test anxiety, but they'll still receive an alert when time is running low, plus improve screen reader and keyboard navigation throughout. Finally, let's look at STEM. A new option for the literally equal to equivaliteral scoring method treats implicit and explicit multiplication as equivalent. This prevents learners from being penalized for stylistic differences in notation, while giving authors more flexibility in how math answers are scored. Let's take a closer look. So let's take a look at the new implicit and explicit multiplication option for our literally equal to method. Now this is really for math questions where there's really more than one valid way to write the same expression, specifically if you're using the literally equal to scoring method. And what this method does is that it treats implicit and explicit multiplication as equivalent. So answers that differ only by the presence of a multiplication symbol are now scored as correct. And with this option, this would really support authors who would have to instead manually author multiple alternate correct responses to account for both notations. And that really adds up quickly when you're building at scale. So we've introduced this option to really support authors in that aspect, as well as giving learners the ability to answer in the way that they want to. So let's take a quick look. So if I don't have this option enabled and I were to answer it with the correct response, then it would be marked correct. But let's say if I wanted to add a multiplication symbol to make it explicit, it would suddenly be marked as incorrect. Now, if I go back to the question and I now enable this option, again, if I were to include the exact correct response I have, it'd be fine. But if I wanted to add in a multiplication symbol, it'll also now be scored as correct. So now learners aren't penalized for their stylistic differences in notation, and authors don't have to anticipate and account for every variation by hand. And that concludes the overview of our second long-term support release of 2026. If you have any questions, we'd love to hear from you. Customers can log a ticket at help.learnosity.com. If you're not a customer, feel free to email us at team@learnosity.com. Thanks for watching, and we look forward to hearing from you.